Ravens flock, what's going on? I hope everybody's having a good day so far. We are on the cusp of what could be a very interesting 7 day period, not just with the Ravens, but with the entire NFL. But obviously, in our case, we're still riding high from like a dominant victory over the Detroit Lions. We're heading down to Arizona for what should be, assuming Harbaugh actually makes people prepared. I mean, gets the team prepared, which should be another dominant win over the Cardinals. But as far as the entire NFL, what's really interesting right now is obviously the trade deadline is this coming Tuesday or next week Tuesday, and like a couple of days from now, I believe it's going to be on Halloween. It's a trade deadline, and so we're definitely going to see a lot of shocking, but then also not shocking moves throughout the NFL. We've already seen one move just like a day ago or so, with the Philadelphia Eagles. They traded Terrell Edmonds and somebody else in exchange for All-Pro Safety Kevin Byard, which makes sense because again they had, despite them having Darius Slay, they still have had a bottom tier secondary. So I thought that was a very interesting move, obviously. But over the next couple of days, we're definitely gonna see which teams have already called it a day and are just getting ready to basically tank and just sort of rebuild their team and just try to go back to the drawing board next season in the draft. And with the big trade, I'm not gonna call it a blockbuster trade, but with the surprising trade where the Titans gave up one of their best players, if not the best player on their defense. They just handed him over to a Super Bowl contender in the Eagles that already have a really stacked roster on both sides. It's looking like the Titans are definitely signaling to the NFL that they're one of the teams that are going to be selling, which isn't that surprising. They've been a pretty mediocre team the past couple years. They did have that good run a couple years ago where they went to the AFC title game, but at that time, that was definitely a prime Derrick Henry, and then also they still had AJ Brown, and they had Corey Davis as like a number two, so it was a slightly different team. And then they also just happened to get lucky because obviously they got lucky and beat us, and then they beat a couple other teams, but the Cinderella story kind of ran its course. But since then, they've been doing a whole lot of nothing. And for the past 2 years in a row, they've been trying their hardest to replace Ryan Tannehill with another quarterback, but it really hasn't panned out yet. Malik Willis and Will Levis and all his backups, they're pretty mid. And I'm sure that they're going to try again this upcoming offseason. So I'm imagining that their main focus is either trying to acquire different players who could be traded again shortly after they get them, or maybe at the end of the season, or just acquiring draft picks that they could use to try to get as high a draft position as possible, assuming that they're still trying to get that quarterback, because then I would imagine they're going to try to go for like the Caleb Williams or the Shador Sanders or Bo Nix or whoever is like the top quarterbacks in the next draft class. But again, obviously I'm bringing up the Titans specifically right now because news broke. I don't want to call it news, but like a major rumor broke earlier today saying that the Ravens are one of the main teams interested in Derrick Henry. Again, the Titans, with them getting rid of Kevin Byard, that's pretty much a signal that they're ready to just pretty much just tear the team apart at this point. You think about a guy like Derrick Henry, he's been in the league 7 years now. He's 30 years old. That rookie Tajay Spears has shown a lot of flashes that he could be the new guy. And I do think at this point they may just be looking at Derrick as, and then also his contract is expiring this year if I'm not mistaken. It's like a $12 million deal. I think the report said that there's still like $7 million that hasn't been paid off yet. So I imagine that they might just also be in a place where they just may be ready to just kind of ship him off, which has led to a very big rumor that's being circulating now on different articles and websites saying that the Ravens are one of the front-running teams trying to get a hold of Derrick Henry. So while it's definitely good, it would be interesting to see if we pull that trigger. Again, personally, with the way our roster's looking right now, and with the way we just looked against the Detroit Lions, which was a team that was getting a lot of hype prior to us, just completely destroying them. If I was EDC, I would just stand pat. I really wouldn't make any moves, but at the same time, I could fully understand somebody choosing to make the moves and get aggressive, especially when you see a team like the Eagles that was just in the Super Bowl that still has most of those players and then drafted even more studs of this past year. Seeing them still get aggressive and go out to get a guy like Byard, it's obviously gonna, well, not obviously, but there's a high chance it's gonna definitely influence other teams to have that same sort of aggression. So again, assuming that's where EDC's head's at with him wanting to get Derrick Henry, it would definitely be interesting. Derrick Henry's still having a decent season, low key. Like, he's still on pace. Like, right now, he got like 425 yards and I think like, I don't know, like 3 touchdowns or something. He averaging like 4.3 a carry, which is okay. So if he played with Lamar, that probably would go up to 5. But I don't know, man. Either way, I personally don't think he's in his prime anymore. I think he's kind of past his prime. He's still a special enough player to where I think he'll still put up big numbers wherever he goes. But I am interested to kind of see where Derrick Henry ends up, because usually when the Ravens are interested in a player, the player they end up actually getting or going after is usually not the one where the news reports are coming out saying they're interested. So because of that, off rip, I'm really not taking this report too seriously about us getting Derrick Henry. But it would definitely be interesting. Obviously, at that point, we would have a top 3, if not the best running back room in the NFL. Again, even if we don't go out and get a running back, I'm still cool with the running backs we got. Not so much with Justice Hill, obviously, because he keep fumbling. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not the biggest Justice Hill fan, but at the same time, y'all know I rock with Gus. I rock with Gus Edwards heavy. I think Keaton Mitchell is solid. And again, even though Gus Edwards isn't a flashy name, you put Gus out there, he can go out and get the job done. Like, you saw it last week when they finally gave him a lot of looks, like they gave him the carries and, some opportunities in the passing game. You saw what happens when you actually give Gus Edwards that shot. He showed you that he could be a productive player. He just had essentially his best game as a Raven. But for whatever reason, John Harbaugh just can't stand Gus Edwards. I don't know what it is, but they just don't like him. And that alone is also making me think, dang, maybe we are going to go after Derrick Henry. I also saw a rumor saying that we were interested in Saquon Barkley too. Now stylistically, if it came down to it, I would prefer for us to, if we were going to roll the dice on one of these guys in the trade, I would prefer we roll the dice on Saquon. I personally think his style would mesh better with, playing with Lamar Jackson. I think it would be extremely dangerous. You're talking about an extremely shifty and really just box office QB running back combo. I think it would be interesting to see. But at the same time, again, I understand why people would prefer Derrick Henry, because especially even this season, like Saquon's gotten off to like a pretty mediocre start, which isn't really all his fault. Obviously, he got hurt for a little bit, and then also their O-line is mid. Not even mid, their O-line is just trash, and then also their whole team is trash. But regardless of that, there's also a lot of other players on really both sides of the ball that a lot of NFL platforms are throwing out there in like the rumor mill as guys that teams may want to move off of, like Danielle Hunter off of the Vikings. I know a lot of Ravens fans are really interested in Danielle Hunter, but then also there was like stories about maybe Brian Burns being moved, Jonathan Allen, Chase Young, Devontae Adams. Again, I personally don't think we really need. This is one of the few times in recent years where it's like I'm looking at our team before the trade deadline. I'm looking at how we're playing currently and the potential of where we could be at, or how we could look in midseason form, and I just really don't think we have to go out and get anybody. But at the same time, if we do, I understand, obviously, because at that point we would just become overpowered. Like getting a guy like Danielle Hunter, I don't think we have to do it, or Brian Burns, I don't think we have to do it, or Chase Young, or Jonathan Allen, or whoever. I don't think we have to do it because again, with the guys we currently have, we're leading the league in sacks, and mind you, we're hurt right now. Odafe always missed some time. David Ojabo's missed time. Tyus Bowser still ain't play yet this season. He's another underrated guy. He's another dynamic linebacker who's definitely capable of being a pass rusher. He showed that his last fully healthy season. A lot of people that's still not high on Odafe Owe, but again, he keeps showing flashes. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you may need to just give people time. And again, as much as people act like he wasn't gonna make a difference, as soon as he came back from an injury, he got a strip sack. David Ojabo, people spent the whole summer saying he wasn't this and he wasn't that. And then in his first game of the season, he got a strip sack. So again, it's not like we don't got them guys. And then on top of that, we got Justin Madubuike, who has been balling out of his mind this year. Obviously now that, Calais has gone to the Falcons, that opened up a major opportunity for a guy like Justin Madubuike, especially in a contract year, to really show what he's made of. And right now, regardless of if he gets mainstream attention or not, Justin Madubuike is a top 5 defensive tackle in the NFL. So even if people want to say that, we don't have that premier pass rusher or that big name pass rusher or whatever, we still are getting the job done at an exceptional rate, at an historic rate. We're getting more sacks at a slightly higher average than what the Eagles did last year. And the Eagles put up like 70 sacks last year. They had like 4 different players who had 10 plus sacks. And we are slightly outplaying the pace they were at. But still, nonetheless, it's still interesting to think about because I do think a lot of these guys would put our team over the top. Danielle Hunter, I think, is unlikely because, again, even though the Vikings, they have a losing record right now, they still have a shot at turning their season around. They still have a lot of good pieces on their team, such as, the rookie Jordan Addison, who just showed out, Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins is okay. I know, he's not a top-tier guy, but he's still good enough to get you somewhere, kind of. So because of that, I really don't think the Vikings have fully given up on their season. So I don't think they're going to want to hand over their best defensive player. Brian Burns, I think, would be probably more likely compared to all the other defensive linemen that it's been rumored that we may go after. Just because, again, the Panthers are garbage right now. They're going nowhere. Their season is a wrap. They got a young quarterback they just drafted. They're probably, even though they should have been traded Brian Burns, because allegedly somebody offered like 2 first-round picks or whatever for him like a year ago. But at this point, they're probably going to focus more so on shipping out any valuable person they have right now to try to build a decent O-line and, get some good weapons and really just try to build around Bryce Young the best way they can. So I imagine Brian Burns isn't in their future. So that probably would be more realistic. Jonathan Allen and Chase Young, I doubt it. The Commanders, they're in a weird space too, similar to the Vikings, where I don't think they've fully given up on their season yet. So I can't imagine them wanting to give away key pieces to their defensive line. But again, I'm not sure. So another name that I also saw rumors that may be on the move is obviously Devontae Adams on the Raiders because a few days ago he put up he made a statement implying that he wants the ball more, which again, that's another scenario where the Raiders aren't completely out of it yet, so I really doubt they're gonna want to make a big move like that. But again, you never know at the same time. Some other names that, since we were already just playing this like hypothetical game of like who we might trade for or be interested in trading for, I was thinking about some other teams that could be on the cusp of, just burning everything down and just rebuilding or already are there. When I was thinking about a couple names, again, to go back to the Panthers, J.C. Horn, I think that could be a solid move that we probably wouldn't have to give up a lot of capital to get. Or, we probably could get... probably could get it for, I don't know, maybe like a third or fourth round draft pick or something. Like, yeah, I don't think we would have to give up much to get J.C. Horn. Then that could possibly help our secondary. Mike Evans, I remember there was rumors that Mike Evans still wanted to get out of Tampa Bay, so that's something to look out for. Obviously, if the Titans if they just traded Kevin Byard and are rumored to be trying to move on from Derrick Henry, it's all but confirmed that they're just completely blowing the whole team up. So at that point, that means D-Hop would still technically be available too. That would be interested if another team goes after him. Like, if we didn't, I definitely could see a team like Kansas City trying to make a move and like really get him this time. As far as our secondary, to go back to the secondary, I definitely would keep my eye on Jair Alexander. I know a lot of people, not a lot of people, but a few people over the summer mentioned wanting to get him. He's another corner that I like too, obviously. Him and Lamar were teammates back at Louisville. Now, only downside is obviously he's, if I'm not mistaken, the highest or the second highest paid cornerback in the entire NFL. So that would be kind of tough to try to see how they would make that work. But I do think that could definitely happen. Now, our secondary has been performing fairly well. But again, I also think part of it is just because, well, number one, our safeties have been going crazy, especially Geno Stone. And then also our defensive line has been going crazy. But again, our secondary has been holding up fairly well. But at the same time, you look at the Packers right now, they're 2-5. They might mess around and lose next week too. They'll be 2-6. They got to figure out where they're going from here in like the post-Aaron Rodgers era. And I could definitely see them, as much as a cornerstone that Jair is, I definitely could see them considering moving on from him, for the right offer. Another person definitely I was thinking about was Marshawn Lattimore from the New Orleans Saints. They're not, I don't think they're in as desperate a situation as Green Bay, because again they're in a conference that is weaker than the NFC North, where they still, as it stands right now, have a decent shot to win the division, but I'm not really sure, man. I try not to go too far down this rabbit hole, because then you start just playing. Basically, you start playing like a video game in your head, trying to figure out like who all the great players we could add. I'm just going to sit back and just kind of see what happens. Again, I don't think we have to make any moves, but the next 6 days is going to be interesting to see if we do make any moves. So let me know what y'all think. Do y'all think we should make any trades? Do you think we should go after? And if you do think we should make any trades, which side of the ball do you think we should prioritize right now? Do you think we should go, or which room do you think we should prioritize? Do you think we should go try to beef up our secondary, because that's arguably our biggest weakness? Do you think we should go beef up the receiver room to just really, put it over the top? Do you think we should beef up a already stacked defensive line and take it to just another level to where we would be unstoppable? Like, which areas do you think we would or should prioritize if we do decide to make a trade?